Welcome back to the BAT podcast. We got a full house tonight. Howard, Randy, Zac, Alex, gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Yes, good to be with all of you virtually again.
I'm stoked to be back. I've missed a couple of these. I've been listening to you guys on the road, and it's been great. And I've been trying to elbow my way back into the table, so we're going to have some fun.
No impressive car collectors for you to interview this time, Randy. I hope that's not too much of a disappointment.
Is that my rep now? Now I only show up if there's like some fancy person to talk to.
Yeah, thankfully, there's nobody fancy on this call, and Howard's the only collector among us. So,
well, I'm ready to rap about what's on the site, or I'm ready to rap about the Instagram breach. I'm ready to rap about all of it. Like, let's go.
Can we kick it off with me asking you how it feels to be back in your Delta Integrale?
Oh, that's a good spot. The Delta Integrale Evo 1 is running, which is the first noteworthy headline. That thing's back at it. I blew up the engine. This is a car I bought a number of years ago and drove it for a while. Drove it when we were in the other office in San Francisco. You guys saw it. It was out and about. Went to some cool events. Went to Monterey one year. Did a whole bunch of fun stuff. And then driving across town in SF, randomly let go of the timing belt and smashed all the valves into the cylinders and or into the pistons, and that thing was toast. So anyway, the engine got redone and it's back, and it's awesome. It's all cleaned up.
Rebuilt to stock spec?
No, good question.
Some hot Walker's garage parts on there, right?
Yeah, well, that's the bill of goods I was sold, that it had all kinds of hot Walker's garage parts, but those were kind of maybe some of the downfall before, but now it's dialed in with it got a different turbo put on it. It got we went all through everything. I think the cams are actually different than they were in that previous one. Obviously the rotating assembly and the pistons are all new and different and better. Everything was sort of upgraded. So yeah, I'll read you the whole spec sheet eventually, but it's running real nice.
I would appreciate the spec sheet, though my eyes will start to glaze over. I'm mostly curious what that translates into. What is it like to drive? How does it feel now that you have it back compared to how it used to feel?
That car has had a few $10,000 oil changes, as they say. So I hope it's driving well.
Absolutely, it has.
Dumb it down for me, Randy. What does it feel like when you hit the gas with your new hot engine?
Well, it's cool. I like cars from the 80s and 90s. So there's a lot of plastic. There's really good Recaro seats. And then this one has a turbo. So there's a boost component, right? The GTI is just sort of a flat power curve with no turbo. The R5 turbo Renault is like a crazy 930 turbo sort of boost curve. This thing is like sort of a smooth boost curve. The boost comes on gently, but then it really hustles because of the most fun part of the car is the all-wheel drive, because it actually sticks in a 930 or an R5 turbo. You're scared of what the rear end of the car is going to do. In a GTI, you go through a corner with the pedal flat, and you're steering all over the place because the handling is somewhat challenged. But this car sticks, and it's got enough power. It makes sense why it was one of the crazier hatchbacks from, call it 85 to 95, because there's enough power and there's enough grip that you can actually do some interesting things. So it's really fun.
You never drove that car, Zac?
No, I've only I think I've sat shotgun in it once.
Shotgun? Where? I don't even know where we were going to buy burritos or something. But a couple guys in the office have driven that. You guys ought to drive it. It's a fun one.
Well, Randy, one reason we haven't seen you is you've been a busy guy traveling all around. You were recently in Utah. Tell us about what was going on there.
Yeah, so we had Greg Miller, formerly of Miller Motorsports Park in Utah, and in a bunch of other automotive endeavors. He's a super cool dude, but they just opened a new Land Cruiser Heritage Museum in Salt Lake City, right in town. And I got to go and speak at the opening and talk about cruisers and BAT and the cruiser market. And they have 115, I think it is, cruisers under the roof of this old 100-year-old building, old metal foundry building. And it was killer. I took my son and we had a great time and went up in the mountains the day after and had a great time. But that event, if you're even marginally interested in off-road vehicles or Land Cruisers for sure, that place, I was like, it like took my breath away walking through there. I've never seen that many cruisers in one place. It was cool.
What accounts for them collecting a bunch of Land Cruisers in Utah? Is it the terrain? Is it the family just ended up there and they like Land Cruisers? Seems a little bit curious as to why that is there.
I would call it super random, right? Like why in the world is that there? And it comes down to this gentleman named Greg Miller and his family. Actually, his father. You'd like this, Alex. His dad started out as at the parts counter and then the parts manager at a Toyota dealer, and then figured out how to buy a Toyota dealer in his native Utah, and then buy another one, 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 and built a sort of auto dealer empire with his family that now runs it. Larry Miller was the senior, and then now Greg and his brother and family run this business, and it's cool. And so he has awesome stories of like driving around as a kid in an FJ55 out in the Badlands, like on camp trips with his family. So that's where it came from. And he started to sort of amass a bunch of cruisers, and then did some cool stuff in them, and they were kind of noteworthy and almost more museum pieces than still out on the road. So he just collected a bunch of them and made it accessible to the public. So it's really neat.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, so I was there and wrapped that up, and then cruised back, and we've been jamming, listing all sorts of interesting stuff on the site since then,
Yeah, no, we thought we'd primarily dedicate this chat to all of our favorite stuff that's on the site now. We were kind of sitting around thinking, what can we talk about, and it's kind of like all of the best content is right out there in front of us. So I'll kick it off. One of my favorite cars on the site now is also from one of my favorite sellers and people in the car world, and that is the Lancia Appia GTE Zagato being sold by Toli Aratunov. For those who don't know, people joke about the most interesting man in the world. He's definitely in the running for that. He has been around cars all his life. If I'm not mistaken, he drove a Flaminia Zagato in the Targa Florio at Daytona, at Sebring in the early 60s, kind of in right in the mix in the golden era. And he's still alive and well and doing a lot with cars. I think he was one of the founding members of Barber Motorsports Park. Just a super cool guy, has a bunch of cool cars. We are thrilled that he's been around BAT. Randy would know better than me, but for a long time, maybe even since the early days, this is one of the coolest Zagato bodied Lancias that I can think of. I have some personal experience in these cars. Totally drove this car in the Monterey Historics and way back when in the first Copper State. He is the ultimate gearhead. I actually was driving across the country with my dad about 10 years ago. We were in Omaha, and he said, I haven't seen Toli in a while. Why don't we calls him up. He said, Toli, are you around for lunch tomorrow? We'll just turn left and head 400 miles due south to Tulsa. So that's what we did. Walked into Toli's house at probably 11:45 a.m. He's got like the local heat race on from the monster truck event, like on closed circuit television. So he's people say petrol running through your veins. I can't think of anyone that embodies that more than him. So you ought to check out his Appia Zagato. It's pretty neat.
Wow,
Nice.
that's a good one. And he had another car. He had another meaningful, what was it, Lancia that he sold, or what was the other car?
I think wasn't it a 3C Flaminia Zagato body?
Yeah, it was a car that he had owned for many decades. Not the one that he had raced in the 60s and 70s, but he's always been a big Lancia guy and has owned a number of all these models. So he's no stranger to BAT. He's in the comments. A guy that the old saying, you've forgotten more than I know. He is probably the number one embodiment of that. So he's chiming in. He's very active in the comments, telling stories, talking about his car, everything else. So highly recommend checking out that comment thread.
Yeah, it's great. And what I really like about him whenever he shows up is how much excitement it generates in other users, right? So even before he chimed in on that auction, there's all these people who can't wait to share their Toli stories, right? Like he's been everywhere, everyone knows him, everyone seems to have an anecdote. People like that are kind of the glue that holds the car community together, and it's just awesome to see all the stories that people are recounting about running into him over decades of events that he was at.
I love that. A lot of people know him, but I mean, who but Howard on this deal and on our staff is like, oh yeah, I ate lunch at his house. Like cruise by Tully's house. Where is he? He's like in Oklahoma somewhere or something,
Tulsa.
right? I forget where he is.
Tulsa. He's in like the Beverly Hills area of Tulsa. Super nice house, just an awesome area. I'd never been there before, but I've been there now. The comments thread on that listing is particularly amazing, and talk about BAT community. There are guys in the bank, hey, totally, we had lunch in Italy in '93 before the Milla Miglia and Sarania. Do you remember that? He's right back. Oh yeah, this and that. So it's pretty neat.
Howard, what kind of racing is he doing in a car like that with an 1100cc V4? I'm sure it's about 70 horsepower. What kind of stuff? I mean, it's got harnesses in it and stuff. What's he doing? Is it road racing?
He did like some rallies, like the Copper State, and he took it to the Monterey Historics. That's probably not a car that's a car you would have vintage raced in the 80s and 90s. Probably not today, or you'd be very, very slow and uncompetitive. But yeah, they were around. But he was like, if you go to Racing Sports Cars is a good site if you're a dork like me and want to look up the full finishing grid of whatever race that happened 50 years ago. He was very admirably like driving old Lancias to 22nd overall at Sebring and Daytona in '63 and '64. So he was there doing it and was truly rubbing shoulders with all the greats back then. Randy, you were fired up, maybe Alex and Zach, but a few cars we got. We were chit-chatting about cool 4x4s and some of our favorite kind of FJs, Broncos, Scouts, Blazers, of which there seems to be a almost never-ending stream of really cool stuff on off-road.
I mean, the 4x4 heat on the site right now is pretty strong. Arconic Rover, TLC modified 80 series. We've got swap Blazer, stockish Blazer. So certainly no shortage. Any favorites among them, Randy?
I mean, the FJ80 on the site is really special. It's a full build by Jonathan Ward at TLC, not at Icon, but at TLC. TLC is like the company he had first, where he was doing sort of more similar to OEM Toyota aesthetics, but then redoing drivetrains and that sort of thing, as opposed to Icon, which was like his full production aluminum body, different sort of vehicles that he's doing. So that one, I mean, a lot of people dream of having him come and build a car to spec, which is A, expensive, and B, takes years. So to have one that's like one of his on the site right now and like available to you in 7 days is pretty wild. People are guessing what that thing's going to bid to. And it won't be cheap, but that's a great vehicle. A lot of people love the 80, and then I don't love the 80 for its factory drivetrain, but he puts an LS in it, and it just becomes a really pretty remarkable. So anyway, that thing's crazy. We've got this crazy Overlander thing on BAT Premium, which I haven't even looked at too deeply. I was psyched that somebody's selling it no reserve, and Alex, you were going into the fact that the cab on that was previously on a vehicle going around the world, and really a sort of adventure type vehicle that's way out of the normal realm. Is that right, Alex?
Yeah, a Titan. So it's a little bit of a confusing story on what exactly it is, but it's an overlanding kind of expedition rig that has this really cool kind of living quarters module popped onto the back of it. So it's the chassis. The chassis is a Titan, which is actually a civilian version of a military vehicle. There's apparently 6-wheel versions as well. This is the 4-wheel version, long wheelbase, diesel, cab up front. And then what this build is has the kind of living quarters from a MAN truck that was going all over the world. It's got really cool like wood paneled cabinetry and like wood floors, really interesting. And when that truck, I think, was in California, this MAN truck, it got wrecked and obviously couldn't be rebuilt and be legal in the US. So what they did was they took the living quarters off that and popped them onto this civilianized military chassis and built this rig that we've got on the site now. And super cool looking, really cool features. It's a pretty long and detailed write-up. You can really get caught up in some of the details, both in the description and in the photo gallery. Getting a lot of kind of, unsurprisingly, a pretty excited reception from a lot of folks.
Don't forget the vids, man. The videos on that listing are so solid. He's got like 7 videos. Final one is ride height adjustment.
Yes.
Oh, Zach, you literally took the words out of my mouth. Well, first of all, that car is in attendance at the Overland Expo West event this weekend. So by the time this airs, that'll be over. But I'm sure a bunch of BIT members will have been there. But yeah, the videos are amazing. The walkthrough video is basically like a Zillow real estate listing. The ride height adjustment with the remote, Zach. It's sheer entertainment.
It's got this like hydraulic motorcycle platform on the back that like lifts your motorcycle like 10 feet up off the ground. He's got a demonstration of that with a bike sitting on the back of it. It's like, I mean, it's like you say, Howard, it's like a house. It's a house rolling down the street. You know, it's got all this storage underneath. It's got like what looks to be a pretty complete kitchen in there. It's really amazing. And actually my favorite feature is the, on one of the blinds on one of the windows in the living quarters, you can see the route that the European couple took before they smashed up their man truck. So you can see they were all over South America and Europe and a lot of North America, I think even part of Africa. So I love that they left that in there. You can see at least where the living quarters portion has been.
Yeah, no, if the basis of your adventure vehicle classifies as a medium tactical vehicle, then you're probably off on the right foot. But I know Randy mentioned the time and expense for like a Jonathan Ward Icon or Land Cruiser. This thing reportedly is 700 grand to build. I don't know if we have 700 grand in receipts, but I don't know what the weight is. But in a similar fashion, this is a little more niche than an FJ80 or a Bronco, but if you want one of these things and you don't want to pay full retail or wait X amount of years, this is your chance to buy it in 10 days. So
I think that's fascinating across our whole website, right? I mean, people doing custom things, some of them will go for many multiples of what people spent on it because you can't get another one and because you're basically cutting the wait list, or it's like instant gratification. And then, but for a long time, we always said, you know, like, okay, that guy's got 300 grand invested in a Tri-5 Chevy. I mean, the thing's worth 40 grand, right? So like, there's a really wild dynamic on which vehicles will like live up to the hype of all the modification work. And, you know, these Blazers we've been seeing with LSs in them selling for 150 grand, like over and over and over again, like kind of blows my mind. And then the Coyote upgrade on Broncos is bringing big money. And I mean, we've seen this stuff on Resto Mods, and I love modified cars. It's like my favorite thing. And that comes down to that overland vehicle, and somebody pouring hundreds of thousands of dollars into it is crazy. But we're going to watch the bids on that, and people are going to pay for a lot of that. I assume, you know, the travel trailer that we sold a while back, different stuff that is just one of a kind and really well done, just goes really wild on BAT. So it's kind of fun to watch, but it's also kind of this sorcery around like, how do you know which ones are going to go to the moon and which ones aren't? It makes for great spectating, that's for sure. But yeah, anyway, there's some wild exceptions to every rule, it seems like.
Nice. I love the philosophical dilemma of modifications versus upgrades. I think that's a little bit what we're getting at here.
Yeah, I used to early days of BAT, I'd say the worst 2 words that Alex has slapped me for saying, right? I would say things were tastefully modified, which Alex is like, we will never say that in an auction because it's so subjective. Back when BAT was sort of a show of one person and their opinions, I could get away with saying that. But once it's all of us contributing, yeah, what is that? You know, what defines that? And now I see
But
that
you actually
I see
have
that on
good
other
taste.
auctions. I see that on other auctions, copycat auctions. They'll say tastefully modified. And I was like, dude, I used to say that 10 years ago and I don't say it anymore. What are you doing? You're not allowed to say that.
Does
So
it trigger you though, Randy? I mean, obviously you key in on it, so maybe I wasn't too far off base. I feel really bad for stifling you though, man. I apologize for that.
No, well, it's not Randy writing the auction listings, right? I may think some wheels are wonderful and somebody may come in and be like, what are you talking about? So anyway, it's
I think that term can be used appropriately. The problem is it's just everybody with Yosemite Sam mud flaps that will say tastefully modified, and now it's sort of lost all meaning.
Yes, indeed.
Nobody ever says untastefully modified. No one describes their car that way. Kind of
modified with no taste in mind.
Everyone's thinking it.
It comes out in the comments from time to time, but anyhow, I just think that's really funny. But yeah, the whole modified debate is fascinating, and we've had a bunch of vehicles across the site that always bring that to mind. But I love that we do that. I don't know if that's our calling card necessarily. I mean, we certainly have, you know, nut and bolt restored, perfect stock type stuff, which I also dig looking at. But man, when somebody knows how to set up a car or a truck, it really makes me happy.
But you know what's interesting with all these 4x4 builds is with kind of vintage sports cars that, you know, have different engines or drivetrain modifications. There's, you know, often a pretty lively debate of, is it right, is it wrong, I like it, I don't like it. But it seems to me with a lot of these 4x4s that, you know, whatever the engine choice is, an LS or a 350 or a Coyote, it seems the reception is almost universally positive, whereas with other stuff, you know, it can be somewhat controversial. But it seems with a lot of these Scouts and Blazers and FJs, like there's not too many people that are like, oh man, I wish that had that base motor. What a shame they dropped the LS1 in. So I've always thought that was an interesting kind of collector and end user dynamic with those.
Howard,
I love that you're hitting on that, Howard, because I really see a big difference between the vintage truck market and engine modifications enhancing their usability. I mean, then you put a modern drivetrain in that and you can use it every day, just like a F-150 Platinum that's rolling off the lot at the Ford dealer. Unlike what I think we've seen, you know, in the past, what Randy was getting at with Tri-5s that have 700 horsepower and have the word show car in them, because that's really all you can do. You can't drive it.
But
Zach,
do you think that's a sign of the times though, like of right now, because trucks are hot and they're in?
It's a phase, man. People are gonna chill out after. I think it's Instagram fueled, man. You gotta have shots of you in Utah in your 4x4, or who are you really? Are you even an influencer?
Right. I wonder if like 10 years from now, people are going to look at it like all the cars that Zach's talking about, where they're like, God, I wish people had left that Bronco alone. I wish there weren't so many 911s that are backdated with.
No, sorry. Record rip noise. Randy Nonnenberg with his Chevy 350 in his FJ40 asking, are you even an influencer?
My favorite thing on this entire topic is like, I have some picture of my buddy and I, like as young idiots, like in Utah with the white FJ60 with the big wheels on it and all this stuff. And I showed it to some people in our office once and they're like, why don't you have a rooftop tent? And I was like, dude, they didn't even make those. Those weren't even a thing. Like what are you talking about? But it was judged against Instagram. So I was instant loser, instant no quals. So anyway, but it's anyway, sorry, I'm kind of rolling on that one, but I think it does make them more usable. You can argue that's a truck thing only, Zach, but those are the same arguments everybody was making for Resto Mod 65, 66 Mustangs dropping 5-liter drivetrains in them for fuel injection, is that, oh, now I can use it all the time and I can do all that sort of stuff. So I think
the whole pro touring movement, I totally get that. Also, I also measure myself against Instagram, and that's why I have low self-esteem. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I just think that any modernization of vehicles just sort of changes a little bit about their use case. But I think on the trucks, what we're seeing, they made so many of those. I don't think anybody really gets mad when you cut up a Blazer and modify it, or when you cut up a pickup truck and modify it, or even an FJ40, because man, they made so many of them. I mean, if we're cutting up Tolley's Lancia and putting a Duratec in it or something, I think people would be like, "What are you doing, dude? This is not the way," But on these mega mass produced 4x4s, I think there's a lot of latitude for style and whatever you want to build it as. I mean, granted, that can go out of control in other ways too, right? I mean, if you go to SEMA, 70% of it is 4-wheel drives, and like all the big pickup trucks have 26-inch chrome wheels on them. I mean, it's there are so many flavors in that universe. But
or at SEMA,
they're actually we're getting to
drive.
What's that?
At SEMA, they're actually 2-wheel drive trucks modified to look like 4x4s.
Yikes. Yeah, there's some good stuff and some bad stuff. But no, I guess what I'm getting at is that I just feel really psyched that we're getting some really individualized, interesting stuff that feels, I mean, the best thing for an auction is when it's kind of a one-of-a-kind item. It's like there's not going to be another one tomorrow. So get after it, because now's your moment, right? That's that's the Apache speedboat, right? It's like, this is your time.
Yeah, well said. Just one other comment on vintage 4x4 drivetrain differences. You can speak way better to this than I can, but are people nostalgic about Land Cruiser 6-cylinders in the same way they are with Alpha twin cams? Like, does driving that truck with the original 6-cylinder really give you that same experience as it does with sort of more vintage cars and vintage drivetrains? I honestly don't know, because I don't drive that many vintage trucks.
I mean, I, as a kid, I was like, forget 6-cylinder stock, right? You got to get a V8, you gotta modify it, right? But now I would go to that museum and you look at the stuff that was maintained as stock, and you start to come around a little bit, and you're like, you know what? Going 35 miles an hour max wasn't that bad of a life. That was actually kind of nice. It's not what you wanted when you were 18, but if you're using it for the original use case, which was on some ranch or mountainside, instead of trying to drive down the 405 at 80 miles an hour next to an S-Class, right? Like, that's what people want an Icon Toyota for, is a modern use case. But so anyway, times change, things shift, but I actually appreciate it more now. I used to make super like bombastic, dumb statements like, I'll never own a 6-cylinder Land Cruiser. I'll only drive a V8, right? I mean, we've all done that kind of stuff. And now I look back at myself and I was like, chill out, dude. Like, I don't know. If there was a beautiful 6-cylinder truck parked in front of my house, would I go drive it across town? Of course, I'd love it, right? So anyway, we get a lot of different types of stuff, and they're all pretty fun, but I like individualism as well.
And Zach, am I just thinking what you're thinking? Is why are we not talking about Duramax powered Hummer H1s? I'm sure you have lots of thoughts on that, but no, on the curation side, we look at this stuff every week and all the stuff that gets submitted, and I think the tastefully modified window is very, very large, but we're always looking at when has it gone too far, and it's I think the whole point of SEMA is to go too far. It's the whole point, to be on the show floor there. I think we can all agree that the wrong wheel tire package is the single quickest way to kind of torpedo the whole thing, but maybe also the easiest to change. So that can be interesting. But the stuff that makes it to the site hopefully is very well received. We think so, but we definitely see the top of the funnel has all sorts of stuff that. From Mild to Wild. So we'll have to have a curation mailbag one of these episodes where we.
Yeah, well said. Interior done by Jinko Jeans. Some of that gets across our desks.
Hey, I resemble that remark. I had plenty of pairs of Jinkos in the 90s.
Is that why you have a flame steering wheel in the 912?
Oh man, totally. I mean, I did all kinds of terrible things when I was a teenager, just like Randy, and wanted all kinds of terrible things. And now the older I get, I also find the case for a stock car, to experience a car the way it was new, more appealing than I ever did.
So
if you're deaf, remember that line?
Oh man, you and Farah, I remember that well. A 912 should always be, 70% of a 911. If you're deaf.
I didn't say that. He said that, right?
I think he said that. But boy, did that it hit close to home.
Yeah, I know. Oh man. After we recorded that and he played it, you were like, Randy, that was rough. And I was like, sorry, dude. We had like a little 9/12 sesh. It was a little abrasive.
Well, it's rough because it's true. You take it personally because it's true. Oh man.
Well, I have to say, every time we list a 70 Plymouth Superbird, I fall more and more in love with them and think there's no car that's aging better than that. We've got a neat one alive now. But Alex, we know you're a big ACD Auburn Core Duesenberg guy. We've got maybe the first Auburn 851 cab that we've ever had. I could be wrong about that.
I'm pretty sure it is, yeah.
That car has a blower on it. Tell us what that is and why you dig it.
Randy, you got your timer ready? 3 minutes on ACD.
I do. I told Alex he gets 3 minutes to talk about ACD products. Otherwise, yeah, we're pulling his mic.
And I actually want to talk about the crappier car because I like it even more in some ways. But there's 2 Auburns on the site. The Cabriolet is an amazing car. I mean, it's basically a boat tail speedster without the body, right? Cowl forward and powertrain's the same as a boat tail. Supercharged straight 8 with a blower, outside pipes, 2-speed Columbia rear end. Gorgeous Art Deco styling inside and out. That's a late Auburn, beautiful car, well restored. I think it was a ACD winner at one of the national shows. Super cool looking car, and a lot of performance for the time. That's a 100-mile-an-hour car in the 1930s, but also pretty expensive during the Depression. The other Auburn that we have, I kind of like more. It's like an old restoration, brown 70s restoration. It's an Auburn coupe from 1931. It's got the older 270 cubic inch straight 8. That's a car, or 270 cubic inch, I think. What we were talking about earlier relates to this a little bit in terms of driving a car and experiencing what it was like to drive the car in period. My kind of dream is to have an ACD car that I can drive from California back to the National Auburn Core Duesenberg Club meet in Indiana. I'm kind of building my old Cord 810 to do that, but I think the Cord probably won't make it. But a car like this Auburn, which is simpler, probably could make it. And with a 2-speed rear end, you could drive at highway speeds, and it has 100 horsepower out of a flathead straight 8, so you could keep up with other cars. I love the idea of doing that, and I love the idea of kind of experiencing that car the way it felt in 1931 when you had it was a pretty high performance car for the period.
2 Auburns currently live, and yet no Auburn model page on BAT. So maybe this will be the impetus to make that happen. We had talked about the kind of cross-shopping cars from a certain year. We did 1967 a few episodes back. Then me and Alex were chatting, and we thought the next year could be 1931. I think that car you just talked about, Alex, the Brome one is a 31 car. As you know, for me, 31, probably Cord L29 takes the cake for me if we're staying in the ACD realm. But anyways, we need that Auburn model page. Maybe Monday morning that'll be our first order of business.
Yes, indeed. That's a smart move. I think we've actually maybe auctioned more Cords than Auburns, which is interesting. No L29s yet, though. I don't think, Howard. Coming soon. That's even crappier than an 810, 812. Beautiful car, but not much of a car.
All right, transition out of there. I'm pulling us out of the ACD stuff. I love it. Actually, let me make a transition topic. I was shopping hot rods last night online, Alex, which you'll like, and I found a guy who made a hot rod out of a Ford 5-window, which you'll also like. But it was in the Auburn Core Duesenberg Museum. It was part of that collection for some reason. Obviously, it's a Ford. It makes no sense. Maybe it was donated, or maybe it sat there for no reason for a long time. Had original paint all over. Had original paint, green, black, 2-tone, and then the guy made a rod out of it, which and now it's for sale. I thought the Auburn connection may mean you need to get in on this thing, but I'll dig it up. That was on the Jalopy Journal. Their classifieds are called the Ham. Anyway, there's awesome cars there, and I was digging around there last night. Thought of you with that one.
They have a bunch of non-ACD cars there, which is weird. They have like a gull wing and they have like Pierce arrows. Some of it is like Indiana connection. There are a bunch of other manufacturers in Indiana, but some of them, you're right, they're probably donations or random stuff. What was the motor in the Model A? Was it Model A? It was a 31?
It was, I don't think it was a 32. It would have been more money. I think it was a 31.
Yeah.
Or even a 30. No, I think it was a 31, but those have the dumpy grill with it. So it had a 32 grill on it. Anyway, we can go deep on hot rod stuff, but I'll send you that link. That thing was sweet.
Separate pod topic. We can't go deep on hot rods right now.
We can, but I'll see Zach and Howard fall asleep pretty quick. We gotta like with me with the Auburns, we gotta pull it back from hot rods before half our team glazes over a little bit.
No, I would just add, I have developed a weird affinity in the last few years for 37 to 40 modified Ford coupes.
Nice.
It's probably not a desire that's strong enough for me to actually go out and buy one, but like cars, like 40 Ford with a 350 and some cool wheels. Like I'm good with like the Mustang 2 front suspension.
Oh wow! Wow.
Like I don't know. Those have been speaking to me of late. So maybe I've just been doing this for way too long, but that's what I got.
We're teetering on the edge of rehashing the tastefully modified discussion.
Oh yeah, Mustang 2 front end, man. That used to be in like the classified ad for every hot rod. Every hot rod had 350/350 and a Mustang 2 front end. It didn't matter if it was a 30, any model Ford or a 57 Chevy or an anything. They all put that suspension in.
Little tubular A-arm, Randy. Little tubular A-arm.
Well, it gave you room for an engine. It gave you room for an engine and exhaust. You cut out the shock towers and put in this funny little low suspension. You can put whatever engine in you wanted, right? That's why
power
they did
steering too. You get that power steering rack too.
Yeah.
Anyway, and those. Like the 4x4s can go south with the wheel tire package. I feel those go south with gauges, steering wheel, and upholstery. That can be the undoing for too much personalization. But
how many Suburbans needed to die to get the rear bench into all of those modified hot rods?
Amazingly, you guys may or may not know, but yeah, the hot setup for a decade was Mustang 2 front end and a Jag independent rear end. You'd put inboard brakes and half shafts out to, and then you could have any width you want on your rear, huge Mickey Thompson tires, right? So it, anyway, again, going way deep on hot rod stuff. I love this. Our new Good Guys Hot Rod Association connection is going to flourish with a whole bunch more hot rod talk. But I want to veer us back into some more listings on the site. We got to be surfing this together while we're doing it. You guys see that Cortina project sell? Why'd that thing sell for so much dough?
I look to you as the Cortina expert, as an owner of one. Why do you think it sold so well?
I thought you guys were all over that thing. I just thought it sold like to Norway or something. Super interesting. Left-hand drive car with minimal rust in it. Old West Coast California project. I guess those don't exist anymore. We haven't listed a car like that.
I mean, it was a Mark I. It was super original. It was super complete. It was what it was. It was the real deal. It was on the right side of the preservation versus decay spectrum, and it just seemed like a really honest example. And I think sold really fairly. But
dude, I kind of want to have a slider on the site where you can slide it from one side is preservation and the other side is decay.
Yeah, totally.
You slide it across and it goes like, oh no. And then you get all happy when you slide it back to the left. Preservation. Yeah, there's different categories there. But anyway, I thought that car was cool. But I mean, the result was bananas. Like nobody, even in the comments, people were like, wow, these guys are going 10 rounds for the TKO on the bid, and it ended up, what was it, 50 grand, 48 grand, 50 grand for a car that needed everything, right? I was like, wow, that's crazy. I love those cars, as you guys know, but I was pretty amazed by that auction.
Seller was also fantastic, knew a ton about the car on it, providing additional photos. So I could see how someone had a ton of confidence buying that car.
I love those cars, and I couldn't tell whether you thought it was too expensive or too cheap, Randy. So you thought it was on the high side. I mean, it needs a freaking ton of work, but as you know very well, very hard to find a real one for those of us who work on listing production, Lotus Cortinas strike fear into our hearts. We've had to withdraw fake ones. We've had months-long rounds of battles to figure out if they're real or they're not real. That is one of the most terrifying cars to authenticate. So if you've got one that's documented to be real, maybe you got to swoop it when you can.
It goes well. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And that one was really, yeah. I mean, people were asking for like underside photos, and that seller was like, snaps right back and is like, here's 6 photos of the leaf spring hangers. I was watching that whole discussion.
Nothing to hide. You got to be worried when you ask a Lotus Cortina owner for pictures of certain areas and then they're hesitant. That's like red flag city.
He was not. He was super forthcoming. So anyway, I love that we have a platform where people can like, you know, suss that stuff out. You can do it. When was the last time you saw one of those for sale? You know, so good stuff.
As many photos of the rear of the trunk hump as you want to see. My call of the week, another year that we could do, Alex, is 59. So we've got a 59 LeSabre convertible project that I think people are going to line up for when that counts down next week, this week by the time this airs. Best year for big fins and Detroit Americana, not before muscle car era. Maybe not quite as well loved as the Caddies and Buicks, other Buicks that you could get in 59. But watch that LeSabre. I think that's going to be going nuts.
59 is a lot of fun. There's interesting European stuff that year. There's obviously that was the peak of tail fin design on all the manufacturers and totally out of control for a couple of them before they reeled it back in. And then that's an unusual model. But 59 for me, I think I actually go European because my favorite tail fins were like 55, 56. So by the time they went crazy, they kind of lost me, and I'd want to, I don't know, something sedate like a Jag or a Benz or a Porsche or something like that.
Okay, you want to talk 59, but European. We have a really amazing and the ultimate find another one, 59 Auto Union 1000 SP Coupe. This thing is like it kind of looks like a German Thunderbird, also with some really neat Euro fins on it. If we're talking my favorite 59 cars, and you couldn't get things that are more diametrically opposed, but that LeSabre and this 59 Auto Union are would be a nice pair.
I see so much Tiger Mark II in that Auto Union.
I was looking at that thing the other day. It's really, really good looking. And it's not something I say about Auto Unions. It's a 2-stroke, isn't it? I think. Yeah,
weird little engine in that thing. And I remember featuring some of those in the early days too. Those would pop up they're always projects. The weird part about those is they're always projects because people didn't fix them or they just underperformed and people stopped caring. And so most of them are just a mess and takes a special type to restore one. And that one you're talking about, Howard, I think is like shiny and perfect, isn't it? Isn't it like done?
It's the best one.
Yeah. So seeing that come out is unusual. I'd say if you're trolling for cars in the former East Germany and stuff, that may be a more normal thing to trip across. But what's the location on that? I should look.
It's got a Legends of the Autobahn trophy that comes with it. So it's won awards.
So it's US. So it was at a Legends show. So it's US for sure. I mean, that car in the US in any shape is crazy.
Oh, it's Malamute. It's at Malamute's museum.
Oh, that's a Malamute car. I love that. Love that he's bringing that. Wonder what he's going to put in the spot of that one when that one goes. Last time I saw the illustrious Malamute, you know where it was? It was sitting inside. I shook his hand, sitting inside the FMC coach at the alumni gathering at Laguna. I went in there to get some shade, right? And he's like, Randy, how are you? And I was like, of course, the owner of the Malamute Auto Museum is inside the FMC, like already here, like staked his claim. I don't know if he bid on that thing or not, but he said he loved it. He was totally cool. I love that guy.
I picture him in a captain's chair in there.
He was actually on some sort of like sofa. Like that thing had all sorts of seating options. You could get a captain's chair or even better.
Amazing.
Yeah. Speaking of, Howard called that the nicest one. And speaking of nicest one, my obsession this week is, I don't know if you guys have caught this one, but the 40,000 mile Geostorm GSI 5-speed. Are you
Wait a
up on
minute.
that?
Is that on our website? I haven't
Oh
seen
yeah.
that.
I think this is the nicest Geostorm left in existence. And it's the one you want. It's the 1.8 with the twin cam. And that prompted me to also go deep. And now I'm hanging out on stormowners.com. You found your storm home on the web. They're probably seeing record web traffic spikes just from my IP address this week, but pretty amazing. They've got a bunch of info on how to prep it for spec racing. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was actually like a celebrity race series with these cars back in the day. Pretty strong.
I love it, man. I'm laughing my head off. Do you guys remember anybody who drove one of those, or did you ever drive one of those? I just remember them sort of around town. This was a little bit like the follow-on to the Chevy Beretta or something. I mean, I don't know who was rolling in these things or
Yeah,
where they were.
Your
The first
mom
one I
would buy
thought
you a
had-
240SX, so you got a Geostorm,
There you
GSI.
go. We also had that maybe weirdest moment in the history of the BAT office where the garage door was open and somebody drove a purple Geostorm into the office thinking we were a different office, and everybody on our team turned around and was like, who bought a Geostorm? And a dude like got out and looked and was like, sorry, wrong place, and split. And we were all, it was like a Twilight Zone moment.
Wow, that is great. I'd also point out Geo, another car lacking a model page for us, so we can add that to the to-do list for Monday.
How many Geos have been listed, Howard?
Oh, those tracker sellers are outraged.
Zach, I had totally missed that. So this is the first time I'm being made aware of that storm. That is wonderful. It's kind of like a cooler alternative to a Pontiac Sunfire, right? That's great. Wow.
I'm kind of
It's the driver Sunfire. It's based on the Isuzu. It's got the twin cam.
Yeah, it's got alloy wheels that are kind of cool looking. I'm like, I didn't know about this either, and I appreciate you sending me this way, Zach. I really like it. My dad always wanted a Suzuki Swift GTI. That was like the thing that he thought they were rocket ships. And
he had one of those, Alex. My dad had one, and he got it, and he painted the rear side windows so he could get commercial plates for downtown SF. But I actually have real personal connection and experience with a Swift. So thank you for mentioning that.
Did you get any seat time in that bad boy?
Yeah, I did get some seat time.
That's amazing. The only time I've ever been in a Geo was a Metro 3-cylinder that one of my high school buddies' older sister had, teal. And I remember it was a manual, and she would almost never shift it. So she'd be driving down the road, bouncing off the rev limiter in first gear, that poor thing. That's probably the more standard story for a Geo.
And the whole production of the Geo Metro, all teal, right? Do they even make it and not teal?
We've never listened to the Metro, have we?
I think we've had a couple.
We had a Yugo. We had the Edmunds Yugo. That's the closest connection I can remember.
No, we've listed one that was like lowered. I didn't really know what was going on. It sold for $1,600.
We have had, the $1,600 slammed Metro, and don't forget about the LSI convertible.
Well, LSI convertible. Let's talk about that. But man, that slammed one may have been a. I don't know how that snuck through, but yeah, that ended up happening.
That's some Friday afternoon curation, maybe after a Pacifico.
I need another brew before we talk about that one for sure. I mean, hey, while we're sitting here on the podcast, I just got notification that the Lancia Delta that was being shipped via BAT shipping, easy and awesome on the website, just arrived at its destination. It has shown up. Awesome car. It's getting parked in Idaho until I can go out and rendezvous with it. I love it. Fantastic.
Less than 24 hours pickup to arrival, right?
BAT shipping. He picked it up at 2 p.m. yesterday. Yeah, that's 26 hours door to door, dropped off. High fives. Let's go.
But I guess the question for you now is when it breaks, who fixes it for you in Southern Idaho?
That's what I got BAT shipping for. You got to ship it back to my guy in California. It's like, what are you going to do? But anyway, that car, all-wheel drive. We're going to see if we can have some fun maybe this winter. We'll see what happens out there.
Who's there meeting it, Randy? Who's getting it off the truck?
Dropped it. I got a buddy there in a storage unit, and it's being picked up by a cool outfit in Sun Valley at the Sun Valley Auto Club. I don't know if you know those guys. They sell cars on BAT. I told them it was inbound, and they said, "Sweet, we got 2 cars to list on BAT." And I was like, high fives. We got the factory churn happening.
I know those
So,
guys. Good guys. Sun Valley Local. They got some
yeah,
good stuff.
Shep out there, and
Yeah, Mike
and
Shepard, good dude.
they have some cool stuff, and I want to store cars out there, but man, they're full. They got a lot of business out there, so we got some other places to keep some cars out there. But anyway, great cars in that part of the country, and it's cool that, I mean, yeah, I was actually pretty surprised that it's not totally remote, but BAT Shipping was like, yeah, let's go, let's do it. So it was there quick.
All right. Well, on the next episode, you have to give us an update on how that is bombing around Idaho. So we've come full circle from Auburns to geostorms and everything in between. That's what we're all about. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back next week.